Here's a closer look at how MIDI filters are used within PLEXUS 4 by JMK Music Pedals. Editing filters begins by holding down the button labeled Filter on the main routing screen. The display changes to show a top row of buttons representing each of the 4 outputs. Each output has its own filtering engine. The blue light in the lower corner is always for exiting back to the previous display. After choosing an output, you are shown buttons that correspond to each of the filter types labeled beneath them. Note that I'm using a prototype enclosure for this demonstration and that some of the labels and filters will change in the production version. Editing a filter relies on a few common UI templates. The simplest is a filter boolean like when I press clock. The red light indicates that clock messages are now being filtered out. A second kind of template is used to select one of the 16 MIDI channels. For instance, the channel filter brings you to a display like this. What's being represented here by the 16 white buttons are the 16 MIDI channels. If I want to block MIDI channels 1, 5, and 6, I just press them so they become red. When I'm done blocking channels, I can exit. Now you can see that there are blocks in place for channels and clock. The third type of UI template involves entering a 3-digit number. For that, we'll look at the Note Low filter. The Note Low filter is used to block note messages that fall below a certain value. Here we see again the grid for selecting MIDI channel. Let's say I want to block some notes on channel 9, so I first select that channel button. What you see now is a lighted representation of a 10-key calculator keyboard, with 0 at the bottom and 9 at the top right. It's waiting for me to enter 3 digits to set a value. I want to set a value of 64, so I press 0, 6, and 4. Once all 3 digits are entered, I'm given the option of committing the new value by pressing the flashing green button or canceling with the orange button. I'll go ahead and commit. And now you can see that channel 9 has the red blocking indicator. Let me go back in and explain a bit about the 10-key template that I skipped over. There's always a green button lit on the 10-key. This shows you what the current value is. Remember, I set the value to 064, so 0 being the first digit is currently lit. When I make my selection for the first digit, then the number 6 lights up because 6 is the second digit of the current value. Also, the buttons in the right-hand column will light up in turn for each digit I enter, just as a way to give visual feedback. 4 is lit now because that's the third digit of the current value. I'll change this one to 7. To verify, let's look at the current value again. Now, if I want to remove the Note Low filter on channel 9, I just reset it to 000, which is the default value. Once you know how this works, you can become extremely fast with it. In fact, it can be faster than turning a knob and watching a value on a screen change. I'll set another filter for channel 9 and block notes lower than 125. Just like that. Now I want to back up for a second to the filter output selection display that we saw earlier. You can see now that output 1 is changed to red to indicate that output 1 contains blocking filters. The color can also be yellow, and we'll get to that now. Back in the filter type display for output 1, another kind of template is used throughout PLEXUS for selecting a mode. A good example of this is with clock division. The white buttons indicate all of the available modes. In this case, they are in order of increasing divide time. The green also indicates that this is the default mode and no blocking or modifications are currently happening. I'll select to divide incoming clock by 2. Yellow is the color that indicates that data is being modified, not blocked. Back on the filter type display, this can help with your perception of what each filter is doing. And also, back on the output selection display, you can see now that the button for output 1 flashes between red and yellow, indicating that output 1 contains both blocks and modifications. If there was only a modification, it would be a solid yellow. One final thing to discuss that involves filters is the status monitor. Let me revert to a default preset and plug in this USB keyboard. I'll go ahead and select the route for input 4 and output 1. When notes on the keyboard are transmitted, there's a brief flash of green on the button indicating that data is being transferred on that route. Now I'll create a filter that blocks the MIDI channel that the keyboard is transmitting. You see that when I play notes, the green light is no longer flashing. That's the default setting for the status monitor, but you can choose a setting that will flash blocked and modified content as well. Now that button flashes red, indicating that a message has been blocked. Let me activate another route for input 4. Now you can see that the same note is being blocked on output 1, but being allowed to pass on output 2. If I activate a route on another input, nothing appears because the keyboard is not plugged into that input. The different settings for Status Monitor include the ability to turn it off completely. If you want to know what all the filters available in PLEXUS are and what they do, head over to the website from the link in the description below. Please note that some filter options may change in the final production model.